Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be starting in 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, please grab your lunches and find your seats. We'll start in 10 minutes. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please find a lunch and find your tables. We'll start in 4 minutes. 4-minute countdown. Oh, Ladies and gentlemen, if you would take your seats, we're about to begin in just a moment. Grab a lunch, grab your seat as we get ready to start. We're going to get you out of here by 5 after 1, I promise. All right, everyone, good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here, and welcome to the 8th annual Bring the Conversation to Light Luncheon, brought to you by the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation. My name is Carlo Capio. I am honored to both serve in the office of Mayor Parker and City Council and to serve as your MC for today. You know, this is one of the largest nonprofit luncheons in the city of Fort Worth, and that is really saying something for being the 12th largest city in the country. And, last year, I got to admit, was a little weird because we went from in person for 6 years to then doing it virtually. But now we're back. We're excited. You know, do me a favor. Turn to someone next to you and say, "You look a lot better in 3D. Go ahead. I'll wait. All right. And a big shout out to all of you watching virtually. We have an army of people watching online on YouTube. Thank you so much for being here and supporting this great cause. You know, one of the key takeaways we learned from last year was that mental health doesn't care what state you live in. Mental health, depression doesn't care what language you speak, what religion you practice, or the color of your skin. And judging by last year's data, where we had people from literally dozens of states and multiple countries participate in this event, we were able to shine a light on mental health, on depression, on anxiety, all over the globe. So as we start our program, there are a few folks I would like to recognize. So first of all, you know, they say that there is no such thing as a free lunch, but today that's not true, because thanks to the generosity of our sponsors, this event is free to the public, but it is not free to produce. I mean, think about it. We have to rent this big room, pay the caterer, our awesome tech team doing work over there behind the scenes, and the marketing. So those costs really add up. But I'd like to thank the sponsors. They're listed in your programs, especially our trainer level sponsors, Alliance Operating Services, Christine and Craig Floro, Empire Roofing, Fiserv, Medical City North Hills, Office Equity Solutions, and Republic Title of Texas. Would you please help me in thanking our generous sponsors? Another group we'd like to recognize is our table captains, our intrepid table captains who help fill these tables. If you're a table captain, would you please stand and be recognized? All right. Thank you for filling those tables. Now, we have a few elected officials with us here today, but there is nothing worse than interrupting someone enjoying a delicious box lunch. So if I call your name, if you'll just wave your arms in the air so we can see you, and folks, please hold your applause until the end. We have Mayor of North Richland Hills, Oscar Trevino, is back there. We have Mayor of Westlake, Laura Wheat, is with us. We have Fort Worth City Councilman Michael Crane, Fort Worth City Councilman Leonard Firestone, Fort Worth City Councilman Carlos Flores. We have the City Manager of North Richland Hills, Mark Hindman, the Superintendent of Birdville ISD, Gail Stinson, we have Emberly Hill representing Dr. Robin Ryan of Grapevine Colleyville ISD, and from the Fort Worth Mayor Maddie Parker's office, Beth Ellis and Maria Barragan. Could you give them all applause? Special thanks to our honorary chair. If you don't follow this gentleman on Facebook, you should. He is one of the best sketch artists I have ever seen. He is the Jordan Elizabeth Harris board member and honorary chair, the accomplished Mr. Barry King in the corner. Barry, take a bow. We'd also like to recognize and thank the lunch committee chairs, Lisa Darty and Whitney Early, and all the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation staff and board members. Would you please help me recognize them? Thank you. Folks, they work 365 days, countless meetings, phone calls for a 1-hour event every year, so we really appreciate them. Now, let me be clear about our goal for the next 57 minutes is to raise as much money as possible to support this organization to do 3 key things. Number 1, suicide prevention training. Number 2, education programs. And number 3, depression research funding. So if you repeat after me, training, education, and funding. Those are our 3 goals today. And of course, we all gather today to remember Jordan Elizabeth Harris, the namesake of this organization, and all others who have died by suicide. Now, folks, I recognize it can be a little uncomfortable, it can be a little awkward, it can be hard to talk about topics like mental health and suicide awareness, which is exactly why we need to do this more, to remove the stigma bit by bit. And if we continue to bring this conversation to light, more and more of those who are struggling may realize that they are not struggling alone and that there is always a brighter tomorrow and a little bit of hope. So for the next few minutes, we are going to show you this number on the screen and this website. Now, if you're sitting in the room, it's very easy. You can grab your phone and you can text to give. And if you're watching online on YouTube, then you can donate online or text online. Here's how to give. You can text 833-307-0773. And I encourage you, if you hear something today that moves you, I encourage you to take out your phones and donate to this great mission. You can also donate online at jordanharrisfoundation.org/donate. Now, folks, I think we could all agree that in our world, we could always use a little more prayer. So we have just the person to do the job. Chaplain Chauncey Franks is the character coach for Fellowship of Christian Athletes at Texas Christian University, go Frogs, and he will be doing today's invocation. Please help me welcome Chaplain Chauncey Franks.
Let us pray. Well, dear God, we are thankful for the gift of life. We're thankful for the opportunity to gather in person so that we may learn how we may be hand in hand with the mission of the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation. Thank you for our keynote speaker today, Mary Bessie Price, who makes us all feel like she's our best friend. Thank you for her leadership and service. And as I pray for us today, that when we leave here today, let us all be on mission. We can all offer encouragement to those who need encouragement. We can offer hope to those who feel hopeless. We can offer light for those who feel like they're walking in darkness. Let the mission of the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation not only impact the city of Fort Worth, let it impact the state of Texas, and therefore impact our nation. That when people around the country ask, what in the world is going on in Fort Worth, Texas, we can simply say that we're offering hope, love, and light to individuals of all walks of life. These things I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Chaplain Franks. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have to admit, when I saw the bio of the next person speaking, I was pretty awestruck. Mary Margaret Graham has had a distinguished career and decorated career spanning 30 plus years in the CIA. And no, that is not the Culinary Institute of America. This is the other CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency. As an operations officer and a senior executive, she retired as the Deputy Director of National Intelligence. Mary Margaret is a longtime volunteer and patron of the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. But the real reason that she is here with us today is to share her perspective as a family member who has lost someone to suicide. You see, Mary Margaret is the aunt of Jordan Elizabeth Harris, the foundation legacy's namesake. And Jordan died by suicide in 2012 after a brief bout with depression. And Mary Margaret is not only Jordan's aunt, but is a founding board member of the foundation and would like to share some memories of her beloved niece, Jordan. Please help me give a very warm welcome to Mary Margaret Graham.
Thank you, Carlos. I want to introduce you. We tried to find these pictures and we had to dig pretty deep. I want to introduce you to my niece, Jordan Elizabeth Harris, and you can see a photo of her on the screens and share a few memories of her. It doesn't seem possible it's been 9 years, but it has. Jordan loved life, and she had this uncanny ability to find fun in just about anything, whether it was a rowdy game of charades or taking a leading role in family entertainments. To say that she was always up for an adventure would be an understatement. I wish I could share some of the funnier stories of some of these entertainments. Though we didn't see each other very often or often enough, there was always something that she was looking for me to teach her about. The first thing, when she was probably, 10 or 11 years old, she wanted me to teach her how to make pie pastry, like Grammy, my mother, who was her grandmother. So she learned, and she got it absolutely perfect. The next time she was in the teach me was, can you teach me how to needlepoint? And so I had her come up and spend the weekend with me in Washington, and I took her to the person who taught me how to needlepoint. And she had a wonderful afternoon. We have some photos of the two of us together stitching. But she went home, and then I hear from her a few days later that she's drawn a picture of something she wants to have painted on canvas so that she can stitch it and have a pillow for her own room. So it was Jordan, and the times that we had together over the years, especially looking back, you don't realize when you're doing things, but when you're looking back, they're precious, and the memories still bring a smile to my face. As many of you know, Jordan grew up in Texas, but when it was time to thinking about college, she drew a line across the map of the United States and announced firmly to her parents and the rest of us that she was going to go school above that line. And that's how she ended up at the University of Michigan. I think her first winter in Ann Arbor might have been a bit of a challenge, but we tried to help by sending her a pair of snowshoes because she certainly needed them in Ann Arbor. Jordan and I also shared a certain wanderlust. And I won't go into a lot of detail, but when I came home one day in the height of the Cold War after graduate school and said to my parents, I'm going to Moscow to work in the embassy, they said, go for it. Jordan had that same wanderlust. She spent a semester in Argentina when she was in college. And one summer, she went to Ghana to deliver medicines that they had done fundraising for medical supplies at Michigan. When you think about that wanderlust, where do we get it? I grew up in Syracuse, New York. Jordan grew up in North Richland Hills, Texas. But maybe it came from my grandmother and her great-grandmother, who, as a young woman, 18 years old, got on a boat in Galway Bay in Ireland with a satchel and went to Boston. So we have a lot of roots in New England, but we of course also have a lot of roots in Ireland. Jordan's depression and ultimate suicide hit very hard. When she came home from her senior year at Michigan and was undergoing treatment for depression, we would talk fairly often. And as the time went on, at least over the phone, it sounded like she was getting better. In fact, the last time she and I spoke was on a Sunday, and she was telling me how excited she was to be going back to the University of Michigan, to Ann Arbor, to graduate with her friends and her class. Only 2 days later, my husband Ian and I were with my brother John in Florida when Tom called to say that Jordan had taken her life. Jordan once told me that I encouraged and inspired her, but in truth, it was the other way around. She still inspires me. She still, in those quiet moments, encourages me to do something that I might be not quite ready for. Working with the foundation over the past 9 years has in its own way been a blessing for me, as we are working together to bring the conversation to light. In closing, I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. This is such an important issue that somehow doesn't go away. It's the same today as it was 9 years ago. So thank you again on behalf of all of us for being here.
You know, sometimes I think we see someone's name on your brochures or on the banner behind me, and all we see is the name. And I think with what Mary Margaret helped show us was there's a face behind that name. And what teenager, instead of going to the beach or on a trip with their friends, would choose to go to Ghana to volunteer? I think that speaks volumes into the kind of person that Jordan was. And Mary Margaret, we thank you for that inspiring message. So speaking of strong women, I am honored to invite another one to the stage. Many of you know this young lady. Christina Judge has served as the executive director of the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation for the last 4 years, and she has an impact statement that she would like to share with you. Making her way to the stage, please help me welcome Christina Judge. Nothing's going to slow her down.
Oh, I'm tired now. Thank you all for being with us in person here today and virtually. I'm thrilled to be talking about the impact the Foundation's programs have had in our North Texas community. We've made great headway this year with program expansion and growth. The Foundation has a wonderful team of 4 other professional staff members, and I cannot thank them enough for their hard work and dedication. Our school-based suicide prevention program, Hope Squad, saw its largest growth in 4 years. 26 new schools onboarded this fall, bringing the total to 78 schools in 11 districts. The Hope Squad program uses a peer-to-peer model to help identify students who may be suicidal. This program now benefits 70,000 students in 4 counties. In the last academic year, 652 students struggling with suicidal thoughts were referred for help at our Hope Squad schools. In the past 3 years, the Foundation has provided more than $400,000 in program support and hundreds of staff training hours to Hope Squad schools to assist them with their programs. This year, foundation staff and volunteers are on point to provide more than 2,000 people with QPR suicide prevention training. QPR stands for Question, Persuade, Refer. The 3 steps needed to help someone who is suicidal. These trainings are taking place in person and virtually. We'll be providing this 1-hour training right after the lunch today in the Silver Spur room down the hall, so please stay. Over the past 6 years, we have awarded just under $500,000 in depression research funding. You'll be hearing from some of our funding partners about their projects in just a bit. Your charitable dollars make all of this possible, and we thank you. Some of you may have noticed that you have a green dot sticker on your lunchbox. If you have a green dot on your lunchbox, please take a moment to stand. Okay. In 2020, the Tarrant County Medical Examiner reported 268 suicide deaths. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what 268 people looks like. Thank you, and please be seated. We have a lot of work to do, and we cannot do it alone. So I'd like to share this video with you that we've created to help explain more about our mission and programs. Thank you again for being here.
Hi, I'm Tom Harris. I'm the co-founder of the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation, and thank you all for being with us today. When Ellen and I started this foundation, one of the things that became very intriguing to us was the way that people reacted to our conversation about losing Jordan. That's a tough subject. It's a tough conversation, right? So everybody reacted a little bit differently. Everybody handles grief a little bit differently. We always encourage people to talk to us about our loss. We're okay talking about it. We think we're doing a better job in this community talking about mental health and suicide prevention. It's more open now than it even was when we started the foundation, and that's a good thing.
Yo soy David Humansor y yo soy el coordinador de programas aquí en la Fundación Jordan Elizabeth Harris. The QPR program is really important because it really tackles this idea of stigma, and it tackles a lot of the questions and ideas and opinions around suicide. With Hope Squad, we have a lot of parents here in Fort Worth and in other cities that are Spanish speaking. And so a lot of times when we do presentations for parents or when we have a conversation with them, a lot of times there's that disconnect between language because they don't speak English. Really meeting our Hispanic families where they're at in their own language can go a long way to breaking down the stigma in our Hispanic community and really opening up the conversation around suicide.
Hope Squad is an amazing program. It's a peer-to-peer intervention program. It is the eyes of the school. It is a program that allows for students to see the warning signs, and they're trained to be able to go and talk to their advisors about students who are having concerns or issues. They're not there to provide students with any techniques that they need to use in order to overcome their emotions that they're feeling. They're there to be a friend and then to ensure that a leader is aware of what that student is going through. But today, all of the struggles that our kids are going through, they need Hope Squad more than ever. It creates a ripple of kindness throughout our entire district. They're doing so many amazing things on our campuses. The activities and programs are so amazing. I couldn't be more proud of our Hope Squad.
Beyond the Cube training is basically QPR suicide prevention training for the workplace. After going through the Beyond the Cube training, it was amazing the little things that we were taught to look for, to notice, to pay attention to. Beyond the Cube training was wonderful. It really made it okay for people to feel like they could reach out if they needed to talk to someone or to say something if they noticed something that they thought was a little different. The Beyond the Cube training made us realize that it wasn't an infringement, it was a helping hand.
My research project, in which the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation has funded, focuses on epilepsy and depression. If you focus in on neurological disorders, specifically epilepsy, the rates of depression and suicide are far higher than the general population, which means there's a problem here that's not been identified. And so that's the work that I'm doing, is trying to understand the relationship between depression and epilepsy so we could better diagnose it and treat it. Research dollars are very important for the work that any researcher does, particularly research that I do, which really focuses on biological signatures. We use a lot of brain imaging techniques. We use a lot of modalities to understand the work that we do. And so funding, such as from the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation, is needed for that, so we can do bigger and better work to spread knowledge, so we can spread changes in care.
You know, I have to give a plug for that QPR training, because a year ago I went through it, and I'll never forget when I sat down, the first question they asked me was, what would you do if someone, a friend, a family member, a colleague, showed signs of potentially taking their life? And I had no idea how I would answer that question. Do you cheer them up? Do you try to talk them out of it? I was not prepared, and I realized at that moment. So I highly recommend you go through QPR training. You never know when you're going to encounter someone struggling with mental illness. Thank you, Christina, and thank you to those who made that video. So now, remember, if you want to support this great work, we are providing all the information to text to give or to give online. And now it's my great pleasure to welcome Dr. Deborah Atkinson, who is a child and adolescent psychiatrist and a certified coach. She has practiced 30 years in our community and is also serves as a physician development coach at the TCU, go Frogs, and UNT Health Science Center School of Medicine student support program called Thrive. And the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation has provided research funding support for the mental health component of the Thrive program for the past 2 years. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Dr. Deborah Atkinson.
Hello, I'm Dr. Deborah Atkinson, and I serve as a physician development coach at the TCU and UNT HSC School of Medicine. I'm here today on behalf of our school and our students to thank the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation for shining a bright light on depression and suicide in our community, which ripples beyond here. Medical students struggle during their training. Thanks to the generosity of this foundation, we have been able to develop our Thrive Wellness program. Every day, one physician or more commits suicide in the United States. We have the highest suicide rate per capita of all professions in the United States. In 2018, data showed that 28 to 40 physicians out of every 100,000 took their lives, compared to 12 to 13 individuals in the general population. We know that physicians struggle with mental health issues and depression like everyone else, but frequently put their own wellness last. It begins in medical school. We know that 15 to 30% of our medical students and residents struggle with depression, anxiety, and other mental health concerns during their training. So what are we doing about this at the TCU and UNT HSC School of Medicine? Thanks to the generous grants and support from the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation for the last 2 years, we have been able to develop our Thrive Wellness program, which actually offers a number of wellness opportunities and coaching for our students. In a moment, you're going to see some of our students on this tape. I want you to be aware as you watch this tape that without this generous financial support, that one of these students could be a statistic today. I want to thank everybody for being here for this cause to which I've dedicated my life. And I want to thank the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation for what they're doing. Thank you.
Medical school can be challenging just because of the different moving pieces that are thrown at you in all different facets, right? We have classes, we have clinicals, we have clinical skills, we still have research projects, community service. And not only that, but we still have to come home and juggle like our personal lives, right? A lot of people have families, a lot of people have other things outside of the school setting. So figuring out, what keeps you centered, what keeps you grounded is important. It allows you to not have so much burnout. It allows you to really enjoy the process that is medical school.
So Thrive means a lot of things to me at this medical school, but one main thing that it means is family and cohesiveness. What they have showed us in these past 3 years for me since I'm an MS3 has been phenomenal to know that they are a resource to go to, that they can implement us with opportunities and also advice and guide us. So Thrive has really helped with those challenges by always ensuring that we have some kind of mental health wellness activity for us. Once again, to bring in that family unity where we're always together.
I definitely feel like the skills that we're learning through Thrive are pretty applicable to our real life and how we'll be able to apply that to our practice, right? It's just the idea of balance, the idea of bringing self, community, and the overall systems of things into play each and every time you go into work. So anytime that I'm feeling burnt out from a patient or just like a long day of workloads, I can think to myself, like, what keeps me grounded, right? Is it shooting some hoops with some of my friends? Is it, writing a couple of poems or whatever that looks like? Is it spending time with family? Is it doing those different things that kind of really makes me feel whole? And then being able to take a step back and figuring out how to incorporate myself into my community, how to incorporate myself into my patients' lives. And I think I'll be a better physician for that.
Thank you, Dr. Eckerson, and to all the physician coaches at the School of Medicine. Isn't it reassuring that we have all these medical professionals right here in our backyard? So thank you again to the TCU Go Frogs UNT School of Medicine. Really appreciate that. All right, now I've got a special treat for you. If you are from out, and Mayor, I'm gonna really embellish on this one. If you are from out of town and have never heard today's keynote speaker live, you are in for a real treat. My running joke with her when I introduce her is I give the shtick like, they say that people who need the longest introductions are the ones who need them the most. So please welcome Betsy Price, because real short. But this time, I'm gonna talk a little bit about you and brag because there are some folks in the room and probably some people watching online who have never heard Mayor Price speak. I can tell you without a doubt, there is no one on this earth more proud of being from Fort Worth than Betsy Price, who was elected in 2011 as the 44th mayor of Fort Worth and served until just earlier this year, becoming the longest serving mayor in this city's history. Let's give it up for that. Under her leadership, Fort Worth grew rapidly and is now the 12th largest city in the country. And I can tell you there are lots of young professionals who got involved and got civically engaged because Mayor Price asked them to, and that was huge. She claims she retired, and I use that word loosely. She claims she retired a few months ago for about 48 hours, and she is currently running for county judge. She is one of Fort Worth's great ambassadors. Please help me welcome Mayor Betsy Price.
Howdy. It is Cowtown, and in 10 years, if I taught you nothing else, you learned to answer me back. It's an honor to be with all of you today, and I gotta say, I hope you all have looked around. This is a great crowd, one of the biggest I've seen since COVID. Tom, that's a tribute to you, your family, and your hard work, and certainly to Jordan. It's an honor to have a chance to be with you today to talk a little bit about mental health awareness and support for mental health issues. I know you share the concerns and you share the passions. You wouldn't be here if you didn't. There are so many types of mental health, and there can be so many different outcomes. Many find the support and the help that they need, but so many more do not find that help, and they don't reach out and ask for it. And in those cases, the lack of treatment and the lack of support leads to an unbelievable outcome of suicide. Many of you have been touched by this particular issue. I can tell you that my family has shared the pain. We lost a nephew several years ago, and I have a sister who struggled with mental health illnesses, never has committed suicide, but has had several attempts. It's a great sense of loss for any family who deals with it. But it's important that families and patients know where they can turn and that there is hope. It's a heavy topic, folks, but it's not a topic without hope. You wouldn't be here if you thought there were no hope. I'm grateful to the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation. We've lost so many, and Jordan is just one of them. The foundation is fighting for and creating a better network and a better outcome for those struggling with mental illness. They're fighting for support for those of you who are taking care of a loved one. And you have to admit, you all have a loved one somewhere that you're worried about for one reason or another. So let's consider the challenges that face us. We know that suicide rates have increased by more than 50% in the last 20 years. You heard the statistics a minute ago, and you saw the people stand. In 2020, 3,800 Texans took their own life. That's one suicide every 2.5 hours in the state of Texas. We know it's particularly difficult on our youth, and they are particularly struggling right now, having been home from school, home from their friends, but they are back, and there are ways to help. A recent snapshot of our community painted a very worrisome statistic for our vulnerable populations. Tarrant County is second in North Texas, only to top Collin County in the number of youth who take their life. That's a staggering statistic for us. 1 in 10 children in North Texas died of suicide under the age of 13. Think about that, 13. The 2019 Youth Risk Survey said that 33% of our middle schoolers have expressed that they felt unhappiness. 14% of Fort Worth ISD students in high school said that they had thought about suicide, whether a breakup with a boyfriend or just a friend or a parent's issues. 11% reported some type of attempt. If anything positive is coming out of this pandemic, it's that we're shining a bright light on this issue. When I grew up, this was not an issue that you talked about. I lost a friend when I was in junior high, and it was like, don't talk about that. They must have been really crazy. Fortunately, we can talk about it now, and we must. I think that awareness is contributing to the fact that people are finding more hope. Everywhere you look, the numbers among the vulnerable population are elevated. Children with mental illness, first responders. How many of you think about that firefighter, that policeman who goes home at night and struggles? They do, and they have. And particularly, as Doctor said, the nurses, the doctors, our frontline healthcare workers. The white paper that reviewed pediatric medical claims found that 13 to 18-year-olds' intent to create self-harm increased 91% during the pandemic. It's now the leading cause of death in the US. And it's a sad fact, but it isn't insurmountable, even though it is a difficult conversation. We must shine that bright light, just as Jordan's family is doing on this issue. We must wake up and say, what can we do? Where is our help? You must do something about it. We start by changing minds and changing attitudes with a full court press. My time in public office exposed me to significant personal cost and financial cost that each and every one of you bear dealing with mental illness, whether it's homeless people and mental illness, or whether it's employees who aren't at work because they're too depressed to be there. We're all losing out. I can't stress enough that we must include, as we solve for community health, for obesity, for diabetes, for high blood pressure, we must put mental health in that list that we talk about and that we're solving. The conversation now about a mental health jail diversion center that will open soon at the county is critical. It will allow first responders, when they pick someone up, to take them not to jail, where they're incarcerated for a minimum of 3 days with very little help, but rather to a mental health center where they can get the help they need and the direction. When I'm fortunate enough to be your next county judge, I got to be positive, right? I plan to build on that mental health, and I plan to build on community health and bring together the professionals in the healthcare, in the schools, at our own med school here, and all of you to talk about a positive change that we can do. Folks, this is not a job for government. Government is never the leader in causes that win. We must be here to help you, but it's each and every one of you. It's the public sector. It's the private sector. It's the nonprofits. You must lead the charge, and we can help facilitate that. Finding real and lasting solutions takes every one of us getting involved. Organizations like Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation can lead that charge and can help us find programs that are working. And Tarrant County and Fort Worth can be the model for that success. This foundation is filling the gaps that have been identified. We must continue to identify those gaps and to say, how can I help? We need to eradicate suicide from our children's vocabulary. We need to help those who are struggling in science. And something I'm positive about, again, we have to remove the stigma of mental health. Everybody will have a mental health crisis at some point in their life, including my husband thinks I'm having one running again. But there are countless ways the foundation is supporting, and their service is unduplicated. They're doing so much for so many. The Saving Hope program, the Talk About It, QPR, the majority of their services are free. And you heard earlier, this luncheon doesn't come cheap. But to continue to provide that, you must step up and help with that. I'll close with a quick story that my minister told last week, and I thought it might be of interest to you. He said a man was suffering from depression and had decided to take his life. And he decided, he lived in California, that he would jump from the Golden Gate Bridge. So he drove to the bridge and started the walk to the middle. But he said to himself, if one person smiles at me or says, have a good day, or even nods at me, I won't jump. Just one person to say hello, to even indicate that they might be aware that he's alive. No one did, and he jumped. And he is one of only a handful of people to survive and tell that story. We mustn't be the ones who think people are invisible. We're all busy. You can offer a smile. You may have to step out of your comfort zone. You may have to reach a hand to someone that you don't know. Or you may have to call someone else and say, I think so-and-so's having a problem. help me get them help. But we don't want to leave someone standing on the bridge wondering if they should jump or not, just because we didn't reach out. They have loved ones, and so do you. They have coworkers, and so do you. And we must help even perfect strangers. After all, I would bet most of the people in this room are faith-based people. You have a belief, and that's what you're charged with, is to help others. I challenge you to accept that mantle, to pick it up. If nothing else, if you can't get out of your comfort zone, smile at someone today. Make a concerted effort to do at least one act of generosity. Let's give of ourselves, and let's don't risk that someone might jump because we didn't. You might be the answer to their prayers that day. You just might save their life. Think about it with your passion, your gifts, and the service you have. It's my prayer that we all continue to work together to change the culture that surrounds mental health, and particularly suicide. Together, if we take a stand, we're creating a future for those who right now may be hopeless. And a future without suicide would be a wonderful thing. I'll leave you with one of my favorite quotes from Ralph Waldo Emerson. The purpose of life is not to be happy. Rather, it is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, and to have it make some difference that you have lived, and you have lived well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Price. Thank you for that compelling call to action. Thank you for being an outstanding ambassador to Fort Worth, an outstanding ambassador for the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation, and for being a spokesperson for mental health all throughout your mayorship and far beyond. We really appreciate that call to action. Now, if you haven't pulled out your phones or donated online yet during this free, let me underscore free event, perhaps these next group of gentlemen will convince you. I've been told we have a special announcement for you all today. And here's a little background. In 2017, Ellen and Tom Harris, the parents of Jordan Elizabeth Harris, and Libby and Isaac Manning, along with a handful of friends and family members, they planned and carried out what they called a Light the Trail bike ride. And let me be more specific. This is not a bike ride around the neighborhood. This is not a bike ride down the Trinity Trail. It's not a bike ride even to Dallas or across Texas. This is a cross-country bike ride. Almost 3,500 miles, 65 days, and countless pairs of padded bike shorts. I could only imagine. But this was all to raise awareness and funds for depression research and suicide prevention. Folks, they raised over $1 million. And no doubt, they're stocking up on more sunscreen, Gatorade, power bars for a Light the Trail 2022 second edition. Now, this is a fearsome foursome, but I was told Isaac Manning couldn't be with us today. But please help me welcome Tom Harris, Chris Culver, and John Pergandy.
How are y'all doing? Yes, Isaac couldn't join us. He's got the flu, so I'm reading his words. This is John Pergandy, and obviously you know Tom Harris, and I'm Chris Culver. Thank you all for being here to help shine the light on depression and suicide. Tomorrow, November 11th, is 4 months since we lost Leslie. And the 4th anniversary and the conclusion of the first Light the Trail ride, the 3,400-mile ride across America to raise awareness and funds for depression and suicide took 70 days, raised over $1 million, and allowed the ride team and the foundation to reach people and hear their stories across the country. We are here to introduce Light the Trail Ride 2022, this time because we are older and slightly less heroic, but he's not. He can still ride up and down faster than we can go all the way to New Orleans. From the Mississippi River, from Lake Itasca, Minnesota to the Gulf of Mexico from October 1 through October 15th of next year. The 800-plus mile ride will cover the length of America's river. We learned a lot of lessons from the first ride, and here are 4 ways that you can help with us to ride the 2022. Ride 4. One of the late additions to the 2017 ride was the concept of the Ride 4, where the team rides for a person who has lost their life to depression and suicide. These stories were unbelievable outpouring of remembrance that inspired us each day. We want to get as many stories as possible to remind us why we are riding and to enable family members and friends to honor their loved ones. Outreach and awareness. On the table are cards with the route map. We are going through the heartland of America, so this route, there will be actually many people along the route. If you know people or have contacts with media or colleagues and universities in any of the cities, please contact the foundation and let us know. Form a team. The 4 of us, minus is Isaac today, are team 1. Put a team together and come ride with us. Riders will ride 50 miles a day and be 3 days on and 1 day off, where they will be a SAG for their team. Total individual miles will be around 450 miles per rider. We will start training after the first of the year. We can discuss logistics and are happy to discuss the physical requirements and how the ride works. Sponsor a team, the ride itself, or just donate what you can. Last time we had a donor who matched everything that we raised for the ride. It was an amazing gesture on their part, but as we are all aware, it takes resource and time, talent and treasure to erase the stigma of depression and suicide and to bring the conversation to light. See you all next year.
Well, gentlemen, I think I can speak on behalf of all of us. We wish you clear skies and the wind at your back next year. What an incredible, one more time, let's hear it for these intrepid foursome. So more information is forthcoming on the bike ride. And if cycling is not in your wheelhouse, see what I did there? We have our very first Light the Trail walk taking place in Clear Fork on Saturday, April 9th, 2022. Or you can sign up for the alternate race. And I really like this one. We call it Light the Trail from My Living Room Sofa, where you can lay on your couch, watch TV, eat popcorn, send in a check, and feel just a little less guilty. So stay tuned for details. Now, folks, this foundation does such critical work here in our community and beyond. We are fortunate to have Ellen Harris, foundation co-founder and board chair, and more importantly, Jordan Elizabeth Harris's mom, who will show you how you can help. Ellen's passion for the mission of the foundation is not only to honor her daughter's memory, but to do everything she can to ensure that others never, ever experience a loss to suicide. Ladies and gentlemen, Ellen Harris.
Thanks, Carlo. And thanks to all of you who are here attending in person and virtually. We're so grateful for your support. I can tell you, because I participated in the Light the Trail ride in 2017, that it's an emotional and incredibly rewarding experience, and I would highly recommend it. Our luncheon today is dedicated to the memory of Leslie Culver. If you know anything about suicide prevention in Fort Worth, you know the name Leslie Culver. Leslie's life was devoted to suicide prevention and suicide survivors. In fact, that's how I met her a week after my daughter Jordan died. Leslie started the Fort Worth LOSS team. LOSS is the acronym for Local Outreach to Suicide Survivors. The rabbi of my congregation had reached out to the lost team, and the next evening, Leslie came to meet with my husband Tom and me to console us, empathize with us, and provide us with resources and support. Leslie did the same thing for countless of other strangers, always giving of herself. I think Leslie spent her whole life thinking of and doing things for others. She was an amazing human, loved and missed by so many. Leslie died by suicide in July of this year. She, like my daughter Jordan, was the last person in the world that you would believe would take their own life. That is the never-ending question, why? Unfortunately, we'll never have that answer, but we can do everything in our power to prevent the suicide of others. The programs we offer and the research we support saves lives. We cannot offer those programs or fund that research without your support. There are so many ways to give. For those of you attending in person, there's a pledge card in your program where you can make a one-time donation, or if it's better for your budget, you can sign up to make recurring monthly donations and become a stigma stopper. You have the option to scan the barcode in your program, or like Carlo has mentioned umpteen times, you can text to give using the number 833-307-0773. For those of you attending virtually, please go to our website, jordanharrisfoundation.org, and click on the donate link. Or if it's easier, text to 833-307-0773. In the video earlier, you met the newest member of our team, David Umansor. David is our bilingual program coordinator. With the addition of his position, and our dedicated staff, we are committed to equitable suicide prevention. Your $5,000 gift to the foundation would sponsor Let's Talk About QPR presented in Spanish, which will serve the Hispanic population of Tarrant County. And this year, we've been asked to provide QPR training to the Colleyville Police Department. Your generous donation of $2,500 would underwrite the cost of that training. We thank you for your donation of any size. That will help us pursue our mission to eradicate suicide. Inside your programs, you'll find your pledge card. We encourage you to donate whatever you're comfortable with. Any amount is appreciated. And table captains, if you would please collect the pledge cards and place them in the large envelopes on each of your tables when your folks are finished. And now, as you make your pledge, please enjoy this performance of Dear Evan Hansen by the Westlake Academy Hope Squad.
Have you ever felt like nobody was there? Have you ever felt forgotten in the middle of nowhere? Have you ever felt like you could disappear, like like you could fall and no one would hear. Well, let that lonely feeling wash away. Maybe there's a reason to believe you'll be okay. When you don't feel strong enough to stand, can reach out your hand.
And someone will come running, and I know they'll take you home.
Even when the dark comes crashing through, when you need a friend to carry you, when you're broken on the ground, you will be found. So let the sun come streaming in, so reach up and you'll rise again. Lift your head and look around. You will be found. You will be found. You will be found. Place where we don't have to feel unknown. And every time that you call out, you're a little less alone. If you only say the word, from across the silence, your voice is heard. Even when the dark comes crashing through, when you need a friend to carry you, and when you're broken on the ground, you will be found. So let the sun come streaming in, you'll reach up and rise again. If you only look around, you will be found. You will be found.
Be found.
Out of the shadows, the morning is breaking, and all is new. All is new. It's filling up the empty, and suddenly I see that all is new. All is new. You are not alone. 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 You are not. You are not alone.
Let's hear it for the Westlake Academy Hope Squad. Well, folks, thank you. This, you're looking at your future leaders on stage here. If you all stay here, I want you to help me with something at the end. You were looking at the future leaders of our community, the future champions for the Jordan Elizabeth Foundation and Elizabeth Harris Foundation, and advocates for bringing this conversation to light for mental health awareness, depression, and suicide. So just a few closing announcements. For those of you here in person, don't forget about the QPR training in the Silver Spur Room immediately following this event. And if you can't attend today, reach out to the foundation. They offer QPR trainings every few months. Also, the beautiful flowers on your tables are available for purchase for $20. So if you would like one, please leave the money on the envelope in your tables. You could take one home and make someone's day, maybe who might be feeling a little down in the dumps. It has been wonderful getting together. For our virtual guests, don't forget, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget, we have the text to give and the online donation option. And it's been so great seeing you. And hang on just a second. Okay. Thank you. And 1, 2, 3. See you next year. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next year.
you.